X1 Plus offers open source firmware for the Bambu Lab X1 carbon printer, but now they're offering open source hardware too. The X1 Plus Expander and add-on modules opens up a world of new possibilities. Before we start, a quick thank you. If you've seen any of my videos from last month, you couldn't miss my super dodgy moustache. I was amused by all of the descriptions of it in the comments, but ultimately I'm appreciative of all those generous people who donated and raised $1,870 for Movember. So thanks very much for your generous support. Now onto today's topic, new hardware available for the Bambu Lab X1 printer. Let's start with a really quick recap. X1 Plus is an enhanced community firmware for Bambu Lab X1 3D printers, and this is a big deal because X1 Plus is open source, and previously those printers were closed source and proprietary. I've made two videos covering X1 Plus. The first, early on, was a fact-finding video aiming to debunk misinformation and providing facts on what exactly the firmware was, how it worked, and the intentions of the developers. Myself and Joel Telling were able to get the X1 Plus team in direct communication with Bambu Lab, and that led to the acceptance of this as a firmware option for X1 printer owners. With Bambu Lab giving the green light, I then made a step-by-step guide showcasing how to install it on an X1 printer. Since then, the team have been chipping away, adding new features with the latest version being version 2.0. But that's the firmware, and this video is about hardware. So, introducing the X1 Plus Expander, an add-on module for X1 3D printers. There's currently a campaign active on Crowd Supply that has around a week left. I'm not familiar with this website, but it seems to be similar in style to places like Kickstarter. If you're interested in ordering one of these for your printer, the best thing you can do is read carefully through the page that outlines how it works and all of the hardware available. In summary, we have our main board that connects to the printer, and then we have a series of add-on modules to enable extra functionality. Furthermore, the firmware side has been expanded to include an action subsystem for chaining together different commands through G-code. So we have a lot more control of the 3D printer and the ability to interface with other hardware, for instance RGB LED strips and sensors for air quality, temperature, humidity, etc. The X1 Plus team sent me some hardware prototypes free of charge so I could be a guinea pig and so I could bring you this video. It has a few quirks being an early version, and I'll point those out as I go. Let's start with the hardware, and this is the X1 Plus Expander board, the main component. On the side, we have an Ethernet port, two USB ports, and then across the top, ports for a range of input-output. You'll notice that big hole in the middle. Well, that will make sense once we get to installation. To connect the expander to the printer, we have a bespoke wiring loom, and for a laugh, I recommend you read the article about its development on the Crowd Supply page. Like many aspects of what you're seeing here, the production versions will be greatly improved. And to suit those large ports on top, we have our add-on modules, this one here being the Andon board. It's got a 5x5 matrix of RGB LEDs, two switches on top as well as a buzzer. As you can see, it plugs neatly into the top, and there are 4 ports for 4 modules. The second one that I have is the X1 Plus shutter release module. You'll see this one in action later on, manually controlling a DLSR. There's one other existing module that I'm not testing here, and that's the addressable LED level shifter module. In short, it allows you to directly connect and control NeoPixels. So let's get this installed, and we have a special X1 Expander GitHub repo. On that, we can scroll down and see that there's a directory for each piece of hardware, as well as one for the plastics for mounting. Here we have a series of step files, a link to the Onshape document for reference and if you want to make modifications, and a link to assembly documentation with step-by-step instructions. Here's all of the parts printed in PETG, so let's put it together. We start with some M3 bolts. I used one M3x20 and 3 M3x12s, and then we have these little standoffs on the inside. We're going to pre-glue them in place so they don't come loose in future. After temporarily pushing a bolt through into position, we take some super glue and put it on the mating surface. One of them is longer than the others, that's the one with the curve on the end, and that matches up to the inside of the case. Repeat for the other 3, which are identical. The back of the case is also going to receive some pre-assembly with these clips that push down into position. Again, we put a little bit of super glue on each of the mating surfaces and snap them into position so the open lugs are facing left, which is the same side as those 2 little towers. We do this for all 4 and let the glue dry. With the printer turned off, we need to remove the touchscreen. We push up on the hinge from underneath and then slide the whole thing to the right, and it should unslot from its mount. The expander is going to interface with the AP board that's in the upper left corner of the printer, and we have a panel that we can grab from the very corner and pull back in 2 stages to completely reveal the AP board. At first it might seem like there's only one spare port for all of the loom wires, but plugging it in is actually quite simple. Firstly, we're going to squeeze the little lever to unplug the power supply to the AP board. We insert the matching plug from our loom, and then insert the original cable into the female connector on our loom. The same thing is going to happen up the front for the camera plug. My connector had a little bit of silicone glue that I needed to loosen with the blade before I could disconnect it. We have a plug with a red and green wire that now goes into this port, and like last time, the original cable then goes into the matching female connector. There'll be now one cable left, and that is going to be inserted into the port labeled UART on the far left of the AP board. If you haven't already, squeeze the sides of the ribbon cable connector to the touchscreen and then remove it. And then, navigating through this clear plastic protective film, we need to push the other end of the loom through the gap and out the front of the printer, and we want it positioned below the ribbon cable. With the rear case over the expander, we can then connect the loom to the expander PCB and feed the touchscreen ribbon cable through the hole in the PCB. At this point, you'll need to pull any excess wires back through into the chamber of the printer, and that should give you the clearance to put the back of the case into the front of the printer and slide it sideways to lock it in place. The ribbon cable will then go through the hole in the front of the case before it too is positioned, aligning the bolt holes, and we torque up these 4 bolts to snugly hold the front of the case to the rear. The touchscreen's ribbon cable connector can then be reinserted, any excess ribbon cable pushed back into the chamber, and then the hooks on the back of the touchscreen used to hook into the case that we just printed for the X1 expander. To finish, we just have to tidy up the wires on the inside and close the cover for the AP board. Installation complete. Let's remove the SD card so we can update the firmware to support the new expander. At this stage, I was going off this getting started page, which covers installing firmware as well as some other configuration and examples for how to get the most out of the expander. The main build of X1 Plus will eventually support this new hardware, but for now we're using the output of a GitHub Actions run. To update, all we have to do is put the X1P file on the SD card, run the installer from the startup menu, and select the version of the firmware that we just downloaded. Like previously, once we confirm, everything is automatic, with X1 Plus taking itself through the steps needed to update the firmware. Once you reboot and the firmware starts properly, you'll be prompted to update any of the other firmware on the various components that make up the printer's electronics. As usual, this is completely automatic and very smooth. Now that everything is up to date, we can head to the hardware page and say that our expander is detected. Mine says serial unknown, but production versions will have this fixed. We can now tap on configure to get a more detailed interface. And again, another limitation of my prototype, it only supports 2 ports, but the production version will support all 4. As you can see, the UI design is consistent with the rest of the printer, and that means slick and functional. Let's test out these new modules. To insert a module, we're going to start by powering down the printer, and then simply plug a module into a port on top. We can now turn on the printer and let it boot normally. Back on our configuration screen, we can see that port A has detected a module. This warning is the intended behavior, and to register the module to the port, all we need to do is tap Save Changes. Where it says placeholder, in future you'll be able to control the LED brightness, and as you guessed, you can also test the buzzer. It's pretty loud and piercing. At idle, you'll get an animated rainbow pattern, but the LEDs can indicate printer status without any additional configuration. I've started a print, and as you can see, the first corner LED is flashing green. And as the print progresses, more and more of these will light up, giving you a visual progress indicator from a distance. When the print is done, they'll all be lit up, and they'll stay this way for around 5 to 10 minutes until the hot end cools down. There's other statuses too, like flashing red if you stop a print early or if there's an error. You also might have noticed that there's 2 momentary switches on top of the module, and these are programmable via the X1 Plus actions. On the touchscreen, we need to enable remote access, and then after logging in, we can then send commands, such as this demonstration one, to let the 2 buttons manually control the Z axis. As soon as you send that command, the buttons are programmed and ready to go. No reboot required. The idea is that each user can program them to do whatever they like. So far so good, so I powered the printer down and then inserted the camera shutter release module. Again, when I started the printer, I went to the menu, the new module was detected, and I just had to tap Save Changes to enable it. On this screen, we now get two buttons to manually test the two outputs. On the GitHub, there are some early instructions for using this module, as well as some tips for best results. And Josh has also provided a demonstration video to show the benefits of using a dedicated camera instead of the inbuilt webcam for creating time lapses. It's clear from this that you can get a lot sharper images, a lot more detail, and a lot higher resolution, so let's give this a try. My camera has a remote shutter feature, and I bought a remote specifically to suit it. But I had a bit of a fail when ordering this cable to connect my camera to the shutter module. As you can see, every time I hit test, instead of taking a picture, it would start recording a video despite being in image mode. And upon closer inspection, I realized that my cable had the wrong end compared to the remote that I had previously purchased. The X1 Plus guys sent me a link showing me that each brand of camera uses different wiring for their remote shutters. And worst of all, my camera, a Panasonic, was one that needed a combination of resistors and wires to operate. So I went to my local J-Car, purchased the required parts, and constructed the camera end of the cable with the resistors inside. Shorting the two wires gave me success, so I completed the other end of the cable to plug into the expansion board. Don't be turned off by this. With new knowledge, I would simply buy the correct cable in the first place. I was then given a 3MF with everything set up to go. And we can see in the layer change G-code that the custom commands are in place to manually trigger a photo on each layer change. You'll notice when slicing, there's also a purge tower in the back corner. And for this to work, we need to make sure we tick time lapse when starting the print job. Before doing that, I set up the camera by placing a pre-printed benchy in the center of the plate and using those handy new Z-axis control buttons to move it up just underneath the nozzle. I then zoomed in, centered the benchy in the viewfinder, set the camera to manual focus and made sure the benchy was sharp. And I also added a red astronomy torch from above to make the lighting a bit more dynamic. At the end of each layer, you'll see the nozzle return back to the purge chute, pause there while the picture is taken, and then the nozzle will be reprimed by adding to that tower in the corner of the bed. For comparison, here's a reminder of what the standard time lapses look like. And this is what I got from my first attempt at using the shutter module to trigger my proper camera. There are two main issues. The first is I have not tuned this filament since changing to the Revo nozzle, and the second is that my camera ran out of battery at this point. But there are huge upsides, like being able to zoom in without losing quality because the source images are so much larger. They're clearly much better quality too. One thing I hadn't tested yet was the shiny new Ethernet port. All of my 3D printers connect to this Wi-Fi point behind the desk, and that connects to my main router via Ethernet. So I turned off the access point, and we can see on the network tab that the network is unavailable and we can't connect to it. So let's plug in the Ethernet cable instead, and we can see that instantly we connect to the network and obtain an IP address. We get confirmation of this on the network screen, but we also get it if we switch to our X1 Expander interface. This feature is working as advertised. We'll finish by discussing what's still to come and the potential uses. Let me start by saying that what you're seeing here is probably this hardware in its worst light because it's an early prototype and it's not the final version. There's some obvious things that will be improved in production, like access to all 4 ports instead of just 2. The documentation you've seen in this video will be improved and then moved over to reside on the X1 Plus wiki. There's also other improvements on the way, like printed cases to shroud those LEDs and hide the PCBs of the add-on modules. So the next question is, who is this for and what can they do with it? One phrase that came up a lot in our discussions was print farms. For those seeking clear communication and increased efficiency, this hardware will enhance audio and visual cues and the opportunity to customize the physical buttons to perform whatever tasks are most convenient for that particular user. For those that just like to customize and tinker, this will probably appeal quite a bit to them as well. Remember that all of this is open source, so you could make your own versions or remix to suit your particular tastes. And the X1 Plus team are really hoping that people come up with new ideas beyond what you've seen in this video. For instance, the shutter module just grounds the 2 wires together, so there's no reason you couldn't connect this up to an Arduino module that gets triggered at the end of the print to run some sort of automatic part ejection. This system is designed to let users come up with new ideas and then have a way to make them possible. Although I'm unfamiliar with it, it seems to me like crowd supply works much like Kickstarter. So a reminder that there is risk involved and there are no guarantees. I know from the comments that some people didn't think that switching to X1 Plus firmware was really worth it, but I'm keen to know now, with hardware also in support, has it tipped you over the edge, and do you think this is something you will look into? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you to the X1 Plus team for their continued efforts. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy 3D printing. G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.